Shalom, everyone. In this video, I wanted to cover what is nowadays a very popular topic, which is the flat Earth. But I thought I would, do a video on the flat Earth from the perspective of the most initiated Kabbalists throughout history and what has been their stance regarding this issue. Now, before I begin, I want to make mention of two very, very momentous points. One is what we read in 1 Kings chapter 4, verse 30, where it states, "And the wisdom of Shlomo exceeded all the wisdom of the ancients." Now, here from this verse, we learn that the ancients were extremely and extraordinarily advanced and very, very wise. And this goes back to the beginning of the Golden Age with the Garden of Eden, and then every successful age after that progressively declining in nature. Okay? And so this is really what the verse is subtly alluding to on one level, but more importantly, it's telling us that, hey, we have to respect and venerate the ancients. The farther we go back in time, the more advanced, the more knowledgeable, and the more wise, the people become, in a sense. Okay, so this is a very important principle because every, chief Kabbalist spends a lot of his time reading and studying the ancients in order to gain a lot of knowledge and wisdom. Another extraordinarily momentous principle, one of the foundational principles of the entire Kabbalah and the holy sciences and art, the holy science and art of the Kingdom of Elohim, is essentially what we read in a book by a highly initiated chief Kabbalist who lived about 800 years ago or so, called Menachem Rekanati. And he wrote a book called Reasons for the Commandments, and in folio 2a to b, he states, "All the sciences altogether are hinted at in HaTorah, because there is nothing that is outside of her. Therefore, the Holy One, blessed be He, is HaTorah." So, essentially, the first and greatest foundational principle of the entire Holy Kabbalah, and really the holy art and science of the Kingdom of Elohim, is that all knowledge and all wisdom is contained in the Torah. In fact, much of it, the vast majority of it, is encrypted and encoded in the original Hebrew of a Torah scroll. And this is, the highest principle of, the entire Kabbalah. When I say all knowledge and wisdom, I'm talking about biology, mathematics, all of the sciences, whether it's astronomy, astrology, all knowledge and wisdom is encoded in her. This is based on the ancient verse in the Torah that says, "You shall not add or take away from the Torah," because essentially all knowledge and wisdom is contained within it. And it is the Jewish Kabbalists, which are really, if you really think about it, are nothing more than code breakers, because we spend most of our time, code breaking this very, primordial, powerful divine code that is the Torah. Because essentially that is what it is. It's a very, very encrypted, secret divine code with many, many levels far below the literal level of understanding. And so this is a really, really critical and important principle to understand. When you first get initiated, this is one of the first things that is taught. And with this understanding, you are then able to, if you are fluent in Hebrew, go into a Torah scroll and begin your duty of code breaking many parts of the Torah and extracting, as much knowledge and wisdom from it as possible. This is why we Jews have, been known throughout time as being the most knowledgeable and sagacious and wisest and smartest peoples of the whole earth, which is exactly what the Bible tells anyone who reads it. It is because we have this ancient primordial divine code that possesses all knowledge and wisdom of the universe. So this is really important to understand. Now we can begin with this topic at hand, which is this very great debate, whether the Earth is flat or it's round, which essentially is a debate that has been going on for about 3,000 years. It actually, is really nothing new. Already, if you are well read in the ancient classics from antiquity, you will see that you will read many passages about this debate. Already 2,500 years ago, this was a debate. This was a very huge debate, and we find that as the ages progressed and society began to as ignorance began to become more prevalent among the peoples as time progressed, the debate only grew stronger, because the wise men, who were few in number, who were the individuals who only knew who were only aware of the truth. Unfortunately, many of the peoples of the world did not know the full truth, but some did hear it from the few wise men, and so there was just a lot of discussion around this and debate around this. Okay. And so, already in ancient Greek literature, etc., you can see that this has been a great issue for about 3,000 years. Now, essentially, the critical point to understand regarding this issue or debate is that essentially the issue lies whether we dwell, on a circular cross section of a sphere, or whether we dwell on the surface of a sphere. In other words, for the past 3,000 years, it has been widely known and accepted that the nature of our construct, the nature of the entire Earth, is spherical in nature. That was not the issue at hand. The critical or core issue at hand was whether we dwell upon the surface of this sphere, or whether we dwell inside the sphere on a circular cross-section. This essentially has been the core of the issue for the past 3,000 years. And, so it's very critical and momentous to understand this, because I think the core of this issue I don't think is properly understood by many people, unfortunately, even in this generation now. Now, I begin with just one of the first Hebrew words of the Torah, which is rakia, which is the Hebrew word for firmament. And in Hebrew, the word firmament actually means a solid body or a covering. The key word here is that it's something solid, and it comes from the Hebrew root word meaning to stretch. Now, there is a lot of equations between the ancient Greek language and the Hebrew language, because the ancient Greek language is derived from the Hebrew language. So there's many similarities between ancient Greek and Hebrew, and you will find that although there are many Greek words that are not pronounced the same way as Hebrew words, nevertheless, their meanings are very similar, or almost the same as many Hebrew words. As an example, the Greek word for firmament, also means a solid body, or a covering. Okay, and so again, whether you're reading the Torah from an ancient Greek translation or an ancient Hebrew translation, when you read and understand that word firmament, it is understood by the reader that this is something that is solid and that this is a covering. Okay, so already, if you were an ancient, intelligent individual reading, the Torah, you would already, from the first few verses of the Torah, already know that there is some sort of solid body or covering, over, our earth, which would be perceived as, a flat surface. Okay, so this is, I guess, the first critical starting point in understanding the nature of our construct. Okay, so this is also why we read in Sefer Yeshayahu in chapter 40, verse 22, it states, "He stretched out the heavens or the sky like a curtain and spread them like a tent to live in." So already, even from this ancient oracle, right, it's telling us that we are like people living inside of a tent, right? When you're in a tent, you're inhabiting or upon a flat surface, and then the sky would be the tent up above and around you. Okay, so already, we should, come if we're, we should come away with this understanding that the nature of our construct, as is understood by the ancients, is that the Earth is spherical, but that we live inside of a dome, inside the sphere, on a circular cross section or flat surface. Okay, so this is already what is being, alluded to and intimated in the first few verses of the Torah, as well as this explicit ancient oracle from Yeshayahu. Okay, now we then can also, rely on Chazal, which are the very ancient, Israeli sages, right? We read in Talmud Yerushalmi in Tractate Avodah Zarah in folio 18b. There it states, when Alexander the Macedonian wanted to go back, he flew on the back of an eagle higher and higher until he saw the earth as a ball and the sea as a bow. Okay, so already here you have Chazal, the ancient sages, telling us that there were even the Goyim, many of the elite Goyim, or the elite among the Goyim, knew the true nature of our construct. Right here, they're telling, here you have Chazal, the ancient sages, the ones who are highly and fully initiated, who know the nature of our construct, that it is spherical, but that we live on a circular cross section inside of the upper hemisphere. They're telling us here they meet Alexander the Macedonian, this very great royal elite figure of the entire world at this time, and speaking to him, they find out that he knows the true nature of our construct, because he has flown very high above the earth, and he has seen that indeed, the earth is like a ball, or spherical in nature, and that the seas are like a bowl. So the entire earth is a sphere. The bottom hemisphere essentially is a bowl that contains the seas. We live, sort of at the midsection, the circular cross section at the midsection, and then the upper dome or hemisphere, would represent the heavens or the sky. And here you have, Chazal, explaining to us, how even some of the most elite, powerful figures of antiquity knew the true nature of the construct. In this case, Alexander the Great, king. Now, we also read in our ancient Midrashim, specifically in Bamidbar Rabbah in chapter 13, verse 17, commenting on the Torah verse found in Sefer Bamidbar in chapter 7:13, which states 1 silver bowl of 70 shekels. They say, commenting on this verse, Chazal state, corresponding to the world which was made like a sphere or a ball. Again, the Chazal, these are are basically highly and fully initiated Kabbalists that have not just been fully initiated, into the holy mysteries, but even the secular sciences as well, like astronomy and astrology, which are critical components actually of understanding the Torah in the first place. Okay, so they know the true nature of our construct, and so here essentially the mystical, or really more the astronomical or astrological essence of this verse, because namely this verse is encrypting and encoding astrological/astronomical specifications of our universe, is really telling us that the silver bowl, which of course is like a hemisphere and spherical in nature, represents the world, and the 70 shekels represent the 70 nations upon the earth. Okay, so this is a hint, a clue to any ancient Hebrew reading the verse that, hey, our construct, our earth is actually a sphere or a ball, and we live within inside this sphere or this ball, which are the 70 shekels or the goyim. Okay, so from this, what we should come out from this, is that Chazal, that is the Kabbalists, for thousands of years have known the true nature of our construct. And, if you are initiated, into the Kabbalah, whether it's exoteric or esoteric, you should come away already from the basic understanding that the nature of our construct is spherical, and that we live inside this spherical like dome, essentially. Okay. Now, there's also a very ancient secret midrash on the Brazen Sea, which is found in Midrash Tadsha, And I don't include the actual text of this midrash here because it's actually a long midrash that goes very deeply into other complex specifications of our universe that I don't want to get into in this video. But essentially, the crux of the midrash, basically, explaining or decoding really the astronomical and astrological secrets within that the Brazen Sea encodes. It states, we have to understand that the Brazen Sea, which is this big, bowl-like laver filled with water that was, ornamented and designed, was used for the Kohanim to purify themselves in or wash themselves in. Now, explaining the secrets that are contained within the specifications for the design of this Brazen Sea in the Bible, the Midrash says that the hemisphere or the bowl, holding the water represents, our world, which is essentially a dome or a bowl-like, right? The Brazen Sea, represents the bottom or lower hemisphere of a sphere, right, which holds water, which represents the lower hemisphere of our Earth, which holds the seas. This is exactly what Alexander the Macedonian described when he flew above the Earth, right? So everything is lining up here. If you read the ancients, you see that everything lines up. There's no contradictions. So it is supported by 12 oxen, and this represents the 12 constellations of the zodiac, which really support and influence our world. The two lines of knops that encircle the Brazen Sea represent the two main orbits of the sun and the moon. And the fact that the Kohen immerses or washes himself in it really represents Israel, which are the priests of the world who are immersed in the world or in the land which is surrounded by the seas. So essentially, the priest being immersed in the Brazen Sea is essentially a microcosm of us Israelites or the nations being immersed, inside this sphere surrounded by the seas or the water, right? So this is a very brilliant midrash, already showing you, how, or decoding to you really these astronomical specifications that are encoded and encrypted within the design of the Brazen Sea. It's just brilliant. Now we proceed to the ancient Kabbalah. This is more on the esoteric side of the Kabbalah, where in the esoteric Kabbalah, once you get very deeply initiated, you begin to learn that there are 7 firmaments, to be exact, and parallel to these 7 firmaments are actually 7 earths. Okay, and this is not to be confused with the 7 continents or lands, which are really a microcosm or an image of the 7 earths that exist. Now, in ancient Hebrew, there are 7 synonyms for earth, which alludes to the fact that indeed there are 7 earths. Okay, and they are Eretz, Adama, Gay, Nashiyah, Ziyah, Arka, and Tebel. Now, we read in Sefer HaZohar in Book 2, Folio 30b, it tells us the commands have established the 7 earths as one strata upon another. Okay, now this is very esoteric knowledge and wisdom that isn't really known, hasn't really been known by much of the world for thousands of years. It's really only known amongst the elite and those like myself who are fully initiated, that there are 7 earths, and there are esoteric Kabbalistic texts that go a little bit more in detail, describing the other 6 earths besides our earth, and the nature of those constructs and the entities that inhabit those other levels. So essentially, we need to understand is that there are, the Kabbalah really isn't, I wouldn't say it's exactly 100% certain as to what level of the earth we are on, because there are 7 earths, one on top of each other. And I personally do not know what level of those 7 levels we are on. That is, do we inhabit the second Earth or the fourth Earth, or are we all the way at the highest? Do we live upon the highest Earth, which would be the seventh Earth? Now, I know for a fact that we do not live upon the highest Earth. Of course, I don't want to get too deep into the subject because it's beyond the kind of this video, but essentially, according to the Kabbalah, we live, I think, somewhere between the middle and the highest Earth, essentially. But essentially, what needs to be understood for the purpose of this video is that there are 7 Earths, one on top of each other, and the higher you climb, that is, the higher Earths will tend to be more divine and have much better living conditions, I guess you could say. And then the lower you go or descend to the lower Earths, the worse the living conditions are. And I guess you could say the uglier the entities that inhabit those Earths would it be, essentially. Because, below the 7 Earths is Sheol, essentially. But again, it's very important to understand this, that there are 7 Earths, there are 7 levels, to even our own reality. And it's just something that's very, very secret, and the powers that be have done everything in their power to keep the secret and cordon off, the access to these other Earths, essentially. Now, I wanted to, the reason I brought up these 7 Earths is because it's part of the very ancient esoteric Kabbalah. And it is actually brilliantly explained and alluded to by one of our most famous ancient Grandmaster Kabbalists on record, which is none other than the ancient Greek wise man, Plato. Now, what will follow here is a reading of a few pages from one of Plato's treatises, which is one of my favorite treatises of Plato. It's a very, very Kabbalistic tract. Now, he states, or it states, the treatise begins by stating, "Secondly, said he, I believe that the earth is very large, and that we who dwell between the pillars of Hercules and the river Phasis live in a small part of it about the sea, like ants or frogs about a pond, and that many other people live in many other such regions, for I believe there are in all directions on the earth many hollows of very various forms and sizes into which the water and mist and air have run together. But the earth itself is pure and is situated in the pure heaven in which the stars are, the heaven which those who discourse about such matters call the ether. The water, mist, and air are the sediment of this and flow together into the hollows of the earth. Now we do not perceive that we live in the hollows, but think we live on the upper surface of the earth, just as if someone who lives in the depth of the ocean should think he lived on the surface of the sea, and seeing the sun and the stars through the water should think the sea was the sky, and should by reason of sluggishness and feebleness never have reached the surface of the sea, and should never have seen by rising and lifting his head out of the sea into our upper world, and should never have heard from anyone who had seen how much pure and fair it is in the world he lived in. Now I believe this is just the case with us, for we dwell in a hollow of the earth, and think we dwell on its upper surface, and the air we call the heaven, and think that it is the heaven in which the stars move. But the fact is the same, that by reason of feebleness and sluggishness we are unable to attain to the upper surface of the air, for if anyone should come to the top of the air, or should get wings and fly up, he could lift his head above it and see as fishes lift their heads out of the water and see the things in our world, so he would see things in that upper world. And if his nature were strong enough to bear the sight, he would recognize that it is the real heaven and the real light and the real earth. For this earth is ours, and the stones and the whole region where we live in are injured and corroded, as in the sea things are injured by the brine, and nothing of any account grows in the sea, and there is, one might say, nothing perfect there, but caverns and sand and endless mud and mire where there is earth also, and there is nothing at all worthy to be compared with the beautiful things of our world. But the things in that world above would be seen to be even more superior to those in this world of ours. If I may tell a story, Simmias, about the things on the earth that is below the heaven and what they are like, it is well worth hearing. The earth, when seen from above, is said to look like those balls that are covered with 12 pieces of leather. It is divided into patches of various colors, of which the colors which we see here may be regarded as samples, such as painters use. But there the whole earth is of such colors, and they are much brighter and purer than ours. For And then there are many animals upon it, and men also, some dwelling inland on the coast of the air, as we dwell about the sea, on the islands, and the airs flow around near the mainland. And in short, what water and the sea are in our lives, air is in theirs, and what the air is to us, ether is to them. And the seasons are so tempered that people there have no diseases and live much longer than we. And in sight and hearing and wisdom, and all such things are as much superior to us as air is purer than the water or the ether than air. And they have sacred groves and temples of the gods, in which the gods really dwell, and they have intercourse with the gods by speech and prophecies and visions, and they see the sun and the moon and the stars as they really are. And in all other ways, their blessedness is in accord with this. Such then is the nature of the earth as a whole, and of the things around it. But round about the whole earth and the hollows of it are many regions, some deeper and wider than that in which we live, some deeper but with a narrow opening than ours, and some also less in depth and wider. Now, this is taken from his treatise entitled Phaedo, folios 109a to 111d. Now, we need to understand that Plato is a highly initiated Grandmaster Kabbalist, one of the most greatest initiated Grandmaster Kabbalists outside of the Hebrews that we have on record from about almost 2,500 years ago. Okay, so his writings must be carefully studied and analyzed in order to be initiated into the holy mysteries and even into higher secular branches of knowledge. Now here he clearly demonstrates that indeed he's a highly initiated Grandmaster Kabbalist who knows exactly what's going on and understands exactly the nature of our construct. Because here, what he is saying is he is alluding to the higher earth that exists above ours. Each higher earth is essentially an archetype to the lower earth, which is really an inferior image of the higher earth above it. Okay, so here he's telling us that we indeed do not dwell upon the highest earth of the seven earths, but that there's actually an earth that is above ours. That's another higher level. And so, the entities, which would be likened to gods from our perspective or vantage point, that inhabit the higher earth are really in control of the lower earths, which is why they don't really allow anyone from our construct or our earth to really, one, know about the higher earths, and two, gain entry or access to those higher earths. Most especially also given the fact that there is a firmament that blocks access to that higher earth. Again, this is all very advanced esoteric knowledge and wisdom that I guess really isn't known, hasn't really been known by many people throughout history, and is really only fully known really by the powers that be in our earth, that is the people that control and run our world, which are mostly Luciferians, unfortunately. So essentially, it's very important to really understand and comprehend, what's going on here in regards to these seven earths. Now, what's really interesting is that in Plato's allegory here, in a sense, he likens the earth to a dodecahedron, right? But he also states that, our construct is full of hollows, right? Or at least the entire nature of the seven earths can be thought of as hollows, okay? And so I drew here a diagram of what to better visualize how he is explaining the nature of our construct, right? If we look at the dodecahedron, right, one of the faces of the dodecahedron, which would be a pentagon, would represent a flat surface. This can be likened to one of our flat surfaces, and then it is enclosed within an actual sphere, which would represent the outer firmament. And it is that outer firmament that would represent the heavens or the sky. And then we would dwell, say, on the pentagonal face, which would be the flat surface. But of course, this is really just, for all intents and purposes, an allegory, right? If you truly understand what he's saying, then you know that he's really saying that the nature of our construct is that it is thought of as a hollow. And in a sense, there are hollows upon hollows, and they're all interconnected through caverns and caves. And then there are firmaments separating each of the hollows, in a sense. So he's actually he's explaining as best as he can the true nature of our construct, okay? Again, in summary, right, we need to understand that we dwell upon some sort of flat cross-section of a dome, the dome being, the firmament or the sky or the heavens, okay? Now, I wanted to proceed to a very ancient esoteric section in Sefer HaZohar, um, where we read a teaching from a very ancient Grandmaster Kabbalist known as Rab Hamnuna. And we find this teaching in Sefer HaZohar in Book 3, Folio 10a. And essentially, I have here the original Aramaic text and my own personal English translation of the Aramaic text, which is, the whole world revolves in a circle like a sphere, some above, some below. Those people are of different appearances from the change of atmosphere according to each and every place, and they live in their place like the rest of mankind. And concerning this, there is a place in the world where it shines for these, darkness for those, for these day and for those night, and there is a place where there is not found night in the entire day except for a brief period of time. Now, I bring up this very ancient esoteric section of the Zohar because there have been many Kabbalists who are not fully initiated who have used this verse within the past few hundred years as proof that we dwell upon the spherical surface of a sphere, or we dwell upon the surface of a sphere, essentially, as is ignorantly believed by, as has been ignorantly believed by many people for the past, few hundred years. Okay. Now, actually, this is not what the verse is saying. Okay, this is why you always have to be under a grandmaster Kabbalist to get the full correct meaning of certain passages in our esoteric Kabbalistic texts. It's not enough that you just pick one up, you read it by yourself, and think you have a full understanding of certain complex esoteric passages. This being a perfect example of this. There have been many Kabbalists who are not fully initiated who have misinterpreted this teaching. What Hamnuna here is saying is he's saying, when he says the whole world, right, he's talking about the entire nature of our construct, which is in agreement with the ancients, which is that it is spherical in nature. Okay? I mean, this is very basic. Any person that has basic intelligence, basic common sense, from reading and studying the ancients would indubitably know that the nature of our construct is spherical in nature. Okay? That's all he's saying there. Now, the confusion and misinterpretation comes when he states some above, some below. Now, this has been misinterpreted as thinking that we dwell upon the surface of the sphere and that some people, live above, on the top of the sphere, and some people live on the bottom of the sphere, which, again, there have been ancient books written. There are ancient books where you have very ancient wise men totally confuting and refuting this complete nonsense, okay? But essentially, when he says some above, some below, he's actually referring to the different levels within this construct, which are the 7 earths. Okay, just as Plato was brilliantly describing the nature of our entire construct as best as he could, this is what Hamnuna here is expecting you to know. He expects you, when you read this, to know that there are 7 earths. When he says some above, he's talking about those entities that live on the higher earth than ours, who live on the next higher plane than our plane. And then he says some below, he's talking about those who live below our plane. Or that is, those who live on the earths below our earth. Okay, that's what he's saying here. And he's saying that the people are of different appearances in all of these earths, meaning that if you were to go and travel to the other earths, you would see entities that look very much different than what we look like. And it's due to the atmospheres being different, or the ethers are very different, in each earth, right? Plato says that what is air to us is ether to the entities in the earth above us. Okay, so just as what is air to us is water to the entities that live in the subterranean marine regions below us. Okay, and so that's really what he's saying there. Okay, and then he says, concerning this, there's a place in the world where it shines for these, darkness for those, light for those. Some people again misinterpret it, thinking, well, again, we live we live on the surface of a sphere that is rotating, and because it rotates, it's day for some and night for others. Okay, so again, it's all misinterpreted, right? Yes. He's telling you the truth here, that we know already that it's earth. Well, when it is nighttime for some people on Earth, it is daytime for others. We know that, but it's not due to the rotation of the plane that we inhabit. it's due to the rotation of the firmament around us. Okay, this is all basic knowledge that he would expect somebody reading this very esoteric passage to have. So there are two levels to this passage. One, when he talks about it being day for some, night for others, and some above, some below, the reference is first to the different to the seven earths, depending on which earth you inhabit. Okay, and on another level, it's also included within that level that yes, even in our own earth, there are people of different appearances. And yes, for some it is day and others for night. But you have to understand also that the higher earths influence our earth, as above, so below. Okay, so if it's daytime for certain entities above, our earth, then it would be daytime for certain entities down here on our earth. So the lower earths are really images of the upper earths. Okay, so this is the correct interpretation of this passage. This is the true reconciliation of this teaching and passage, which unfortunately has been misinterpreted, corrupted, and perverted by many Kabbalists, and most especially many secular individuals who have begun to read the emergent English translations of this text. Okay, so I guess here in this slide I have just some of the points that I just finished making, which is that the world or universe in that passage is a reference to our entire construct, not just the plane that we inhabit. Okay, and so the universe or the world will represent the first firmament, which contains the luminaries and revolves, around our Earth. If you read and you study ancient astronomy, you would know this, because ancient astronomy, especially according to the Ptolemaic system, is for the most part mostly correct, has a very advanced, correct understanding of the nature of our construct and universe. Okay, again, as I said previously, some above represents the entities living in the earth above us, and some below represents entities who live below our earth. Okay, and the change of appearances and time zones are with respect to actually the multiple earths. Okay. Now, I want to go a little bit deeper here now into the esoteric Kabbalah, because as I stated in the beginning of this presentation, the highest, most foundational, momentous principle of the entire Kabbalah, or the holy art and science of the kingdom of Elohim, is that all knowledge and wisdom, and I mean all knowledge and wisdom, not enough emphasis can be put upon this, that all knowledge and wisdom is encoded and encrypted in the royal divine law, which is the Torah. Okay, so if you want to find out all of the specifications and secrets and nature and essences of our universe, the construct that shape everything, we must go into the Torah, and we have to also know where we must look. We have to be initiated to a certain level, whether either we are taught by grandmasters what sections in the Torah contain the secrets of the universe, or we'll have to find them out for ourselves. Okay? Fortunately, I'm a Grandmaster Kabbalist, and I know where the secrets of the universe are contained, for the most part at least. So the exoteric Kabbalah, for about a couple of thousand years, has erroneously taught that the tabernacle was rectangular. Okay, so here I basically give it away. The secrets of the universe, all the knowledge and wisdom of the universe, is for the most part contained, or really encrypted and encoded, within the design and construction of the tabernacle in the Torah. Okay? Now, as I said, the exoteric Kabbalah for over 2,000 years has erroneously taught that the tabernacle was rectangular, which is very sad, because it means that most Kabbalists, even some of the most highly initiated Kabbalists, even did not know this great secret, that the tabernacle is actually not rectangular. Okay? They may have been highly initiated and taught in astronomy and astrology, but it wasn't properly reconciled in their minds with the Torah. Or they just they obviously were not fully or highly initiated enough into the secrets of the Torah to understand and realize that the tabernacle is not rectangular. Okay? Now, the esoteric Kabbalah correctly teaches that actually the tabernacle is spherical in nature, and it's specifically a dome that can be thought of as made of as 10 vertical planks. Now here I have a picture showing the true diagram of the tabernacle as it would actually look. Now, if you actually study the specifications and the numbers behind the tabernacle, you will easily see and realize why this is the true nature of the tabernacle. There are very precise mathematical measurements that are given. Okay. Now, there is a structural engineer by the name of Andrew Hoy. He has a website here, which you can see here at the bottom, which is project314.org, who discovered this on his own. Really, it's not on his own. Really, it's divine revelation that was given to him by Elohim through the Ruach HaKodesh. And being a structural engineer most definitely helped in unveiling and understanding the true nature of the tabernacle, that it's actually dome-shaped like this. And you can go to visit his website. It would be a waste of my time to do a very long presentation or video fully extracting all of these secrets and details of our universe from this correct understanding, especially considering that this individual, Andrew Hoy, has already done a few radio broadcasts, where he fully explains the true understanding and nature of the tabernacle, and this whole website is devoted to that. So I basically, if you are very interested in learning more about the secrets of the universe, the true nature of our construct, and decoding all of these encryptions within the design of the tabernacle, then I divert you to this website and to this individual, Andrew Hoy, where much more information can be gleaned, and then you can use that information to take it even deeper on your own, or to extend and extract more secrets of the universe on your own from studying the Torah in the original Hebrew. One point I will make, though, in finishing off this presentation is that there are 10 sections to this dome that encircle it. And this has everything to do with the 10 Sphirot. So with that said, I conclude this presentation. And again, I hope that you have learned a lot. Shalom, Ramein.